Let's talk about buy and burn. This is, I think, one of the more interesting parts of the DePIN space. So first, what is buy and burn? It is when a company takes or a project takes its revenue, buys its own token, and then destroys that token by burning it. It burns it, permanently eliminating it from supply. That is, I think it's very similar to companies doing share buybacks, where they buy shares from the market with their revenue and then take those shares and remove them from circulation, basically reducing the share count and increasing the profits and revenue that goes attributable to the remaining shares. That's the same thing that's happening in the crypto space with this buy burn. The first companies to do this at scale are actually, the exchanges. So Binance, Huobi, OKX, KuCoin, all of them take some portion of their revenue and buy and burn their native token. And that has been successful. Ethereum implemented a buy burn mechanism some time ago as well. But the problem with the Ethereum buy burn mechanism is that Ethereum doesn't generate a predictable amount of revenue. And so this buy burn ranges significantly in terms of the impact on the token supply. It's been somewhat deflationary, but not predictable. And that limits the amount investors are really going to care about, limits the amount investors are really going to care and value this buy burn. It's obviously far more valuable if there is a predictable revenue stream associated with buy burn. Let's talk about the physical versus digital or cloud DePINs. Cloud DePINs generally are marketplaces that are connecting customers to providers. And when they're connecting them, the revenue doesn't really go to the digital DePIN. It goes directly to the provider. So those digital DePINs aren't really generating revenue. So they don't have a revenue to effectively at any scale buy and burn their own token. If they were to take a big fee, then they would be able to do that. Most of them don't do that. So for them, as we discussed earlier, staking is the primary mechanism, which is serves as demand for their token. For the digital DePINs, for the physical DePINs, however, these projects are collecting data from a large number of providers and then monetizing that data themselves. So they're the ones generating the revenue. And that revenue, for many of them, they take and buy and burn their token. But that range of buy burn is dramatic. It ranges from a low of 5% to a high of 100%. And we think that number will standardize relatively high, around 80%. And we think it'll standardize that way for three reasons. The first is that when you have a high buy burn, your revenue serves as the only demand needed for your token. Instead of your project having to market and chase the next hot crypto investor, you serve as the demand for your token as your revenue grows, buying and burning your token without having need for any other investors. We think that's a very compelling dynamic. The second component here, also really important, is trust. In the DePIN space, there's a number of projects claiming over $70 million in revenue, but there are no financial audits. There are no quarterly reports. There are no filed 10Ks every year annual reports. So we are asked just to trust these revenue numbers. But if you do a very high buy burn, you kind of leapfrog from just asking to trust, you leapfrog past even being audited to be the most transparent, trusted by seeing on-chain buy burn numbers. And that, I think, it leads to even more trust than traditional audits. And so if you think of two projects, each of which claim $1 million in revenue, one burns 800,000 of its token and the other burns, say, 100,000 or 200,000 of its token, which are you going to trust revenue more? I think the project that's burned 800,000 is going to be far more trusted from a revenue perspective. And the last thing, obviously, is team alignment. You want, as a token holder, the team to be as aligned with you as possible. And any difference from 100% buy burn starts to put management slightly misaligned or slightly less aligned, I would say, with token holders. And so management owns tokens, and there's a treasury. So as the token goes up, they should profit as well. And so you want their interest to be fully aligned with their token holdings and yours, and the project treasury and yours. And anything less than 100% starts to drive a slight wedge in that. And obviously, at a very low number, there's incredibly different interests. But that's why I think you want that number to be as high as possible. And so why we think we'll standardize in kind of an 80% plus range for buy burn.